Organizing Committee, I heartily welcome you all to the celebration program of 146th Foundation Day of our beloved IACS. Today, the 29th July 2022. Indeed, 29th July is the most auspicious day. It is indeed a proud moment of all of us associated with this glorious institute, a sign of scientific research and teaching and disseminating of scientific knowledge. Professor Taposh Chakraborty, Director IACS, has just garlanded the bust of Dr. Mohinderlal Sarkar, the founder of IACS. This celebration program is divided in 3 sessions. We are about to start the session 1. May I now request Professor Taposh Chakraborty, Director IACS, to please come to the dais and begin. Professor Taposh Chakraborty, please. May I also request Professor Saptahit Adhikari, Dean Administration and Finance, to come to the dais and take seat. Professor Adhikari, please. May I also request Professor Soumitra Sengupta, Amar Kumar Roy Chaudhary, Chair Professor, to come to the dais and take seat. It is time to felicitate dignitaries on the dais with flower bouquet. May I request Ms. Sumon Sharma to come forward and facilitate Professor Taposh Chakraborty, Director IACS, with a flower bouquet. Ms. Sumon Sharma, please. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Sumon Sharma. May I now request Ms. Shuvita Niyogi to come forward and facilitate Professor Saptahit Adhikari, Dean Administration and Finance, with a flower bouquet. Ms. Shuvita, please.
Indeed, also dedicated to us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shuvita. May I also request Ms. Dipandita Chakraborty to come forward and facilitate Professor Soumitra Sengupta, Amar Kumar Roy Chaudhary, Chair Professor. Ms. Dipandita Chakraborty, please.
So, this is everything is dedicated to IACS of myself.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dipandita. It is time to start the formal program. May I now request Professor Taposh Chakraborty, Director IACS, to give welcome address and also a talk. Professor Taposh Chakraborty, please.
Thank you, Oli. Thank you very much. So, Foundation Day, like any organization, it's a very special day, particularly for the IACS. So, on the Foundation Day, that we not only try to remember and pay tribute to the founder of this institution, but at the same time, we try to recall that what vision they started this organization and the mission with which they worked, and the responsibility that we have got, how we are carrying that forward. Now, this is particularly important with respect to IACS because IACS, it is not only an institution with 100 faculty members and 300 staff members, but this is basically a symbol of the science revolution of this country. And the pioneer of the revolution is Mohinderlal Sarkar. And we are very happy that we have here among us Mr. Varun Kumar Sarkar. So Mr. Varun Kumar Sarkar is actually the grandson of the Mohinderlal Sarkar's grandson. So it's basically 6th generation person. And we are going to, yes? Okay, so we are going to just listen from him more about his family tree, and the contributor to the history, and particularly this of this 19th century the Bengal Renaissance, and the science in particular. Now, all of us, we know about Mahendralal Sarkar a little bit, because first is there in the ground floor, in every occasion we garland him. And a little bit that is known to everybody that he was born in 1830 on 2nd of November. We also celebrate his birthday as much as possible here. And he was born in a very humble family in the village of Paikpada in Howrah district. But suddenly that this work and the legacy that he has left, that has no connection to the family that where he was born. And he is known as the second MD of the Calcutta Medical College. But although he became a doctor, he first took admission after finishing the schooling at the Har School at the Presidency College. And his passion was science. But he discovered at Presidency College in those days, particularly in this time of this 1960s, 1955 to 60, that hardly any practical science are taught at Presidency College at that time. And the only place in India that where science with some experimentation can be taught, or usually used to taught and can be studied, is the Calcutta Medical College. So because of this passion in science, he came in Calcutta Medical College. He finished his bachelor's degree in 1860, and in 3 years' time, as a second MD, he finished his MD degree. And in 1863, the first this Bengal branch of this British Medical Association was established in Calcutta, that time under this British India, and he was an active member of this association. And 1863, that time, this homeopathy that came in India as a new branch of practicing medicine. But like many other persons that who were taught in this allopathy, he was one of these denouncer of this homeopathy. Because this is a subject or this is a branch of this medicine, nobody knows that how it works. But this conventional medicine, that is the allopathy, at least there was some science behind it. But he was a person very much open to science, open to know that what is going on. So in his first address in 1863, in this Bengal branch of this British Association, Medical Association, he not only talked about this medicine, but at the same time, he mentioned there's something about this homeopathy. And in the year 1868, in the 5 years' time, he made a lot of study. And in those days, that whatever the medical practitioners were available in Calcutta, he closed in contact with them, and he realized that it is not completely a bogus science, but there is something is there. So in this 1868 address of this Bengal Medical Association, he talked about homeopathy mostly. But that his colleagues and his teachers did not like that. He had basically ousted from the British Medical Association Bengal branch. But actually he was a person of very much determined person, and he did not find any place at that time to express his views. So what he started a new magazine that time. That is this new magazine, and through this new magazine, he tried to express his views, particularly with respect to this medicine, homeopathy. And in the first issue of this journal, the name of the journal was this Calcutta Journal of Medicine, what he talked, not anything about this homeopathy, but he talked about this general attitude of the doctors, the physicians. And he compared the doctors more like these religious leaders. Like this, every leader of this religion, they always think that my religion is the superior religion. The doctors usually have that kind of attitude. Possibly we did not change that views. And he compared the doctors, particularly the physicians at that time, with more like these religious leaders. So this Our Creed, that was the title of his first article in his magazine. And subsequently, that is in the third issue, he talked about this desirability, that these Indians practice a nationalistic science. That is his idea about this cultivation of science. In 1863, third issue of this Calcutta Journal of Medicine. And then he found a number of persons, many of them actually know partly, Vishwachandra Vidyasagar, Bankim Chandra Chakravarti, particularly who contributed to this Bengal Renaissance, to raise funds. And in 5 years' time, that is about in the beginning of 1875, the total fund that was raised at that time is about 80,000, only 80,000 rupees. Now, in 5 to 6 years' time, with this effort, the fund that was raised 80,000 rupees, that was not enough to start an institution. So, first thing that was done, that is the foundation stone of IACS as a lecture hall. It was laid on 13th of March 1876. 13th of March 1876. But we celebrate 29th of July as the foundation day of IACS because on this day, that time this Lieutenant General of this Bengal, he was available and he inaugurated this Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science. So that is the day we start, that is we celebrate. But actually the foundation stone was laid on 13th of March 1876. Now, after coming about this 142 years, this original objective of this IACS was to cultivate science in all its disciplines. There is a change in face of IACS. Now a university. I am taking this opportunity to express my views, not only the history, but what we feel about it. A lot of debates are going on among the faculty members, among the staff members, whether this is the right decision, whether we have deviated from this Mandela's original vision, that it should be an institution only for scientific research. But the history doesn't say that. Even in the year 1875 and 76, when Mandel Sarkar gave this name Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, many of his close associates, they were against it. They thought that it is better to start IACS as a technical educational center. But there are people like Mandel Sarkar and particularly the Father Lato, they did not approve it. They said that this teaching, particularly this word, in his own words, teaching in technical education can be done, and this art of teaching the practical things can only be done if the scientific basis is strong. So it means that Mandel Sarkar was never against this teaching. So he categorically emphasized that this teaching should be an integral part of IACS. In fact, from 1876, so until C.V. Raman came here, the most of the activities of IACS was confined among the teaching only. But the history again says that Mandel Sarkar died in 1904. Mandel Sarkar died in 1904. And starting from this beginning of this 1890s, he was somewhat frustrated. Frustrated because he did not see that actual research, scientific research, has taken off in science, in IACS. And the main reason for that, he could not appoint any permanent professor here, that who will devote his time full time to carry out the research. And the shortage was, main shortage for that was the fund. Money was not available. He tried to convince his fellow men because the rich Indians were not available in Kolkata, but nobody came forward to donate money. That's so that a permanent professor can be appointed here. So in one of these foundation day meetings, because he was the Secretary General of Association, he expressed his anguish, his dissatisfaction about the performance of association. And not only that, he made comparison also with this other institution. Now, what could be this other institution? The IACS was started in 1876, and very remote, this other part of this world, in 1876, one more university was born. There is the Johns Hopkins. All of us know about this university. Johns Hopkins was started by Johns Hopkins. He was a business person, and he donated a fund of about $7 million in the year 1873. And the objective was to start a research university. Until that time, carrying out research in an university environment was not existing in America. Harvard was there, Caltech was there, not Caltech, Berkeley was there, but both the institutions were basically administered by church, and the teaching was the only activity. So Johns Hopkins gave $7 million to start a research university. In fact, that is the model that America followed subsequently. So what we say that in India, the science, that is particularly the research, it was led by the vision and mission of this Mahendra Shaka, that is the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science. So what about the vision and this mission that was led by the Johns Hopkins in 1876? That was actually emulated in all the universities in America subsequently. And we know that what is the success story of the Johns Hopkins? That IACS produced one Nobel laureate, and in its existence, about the same, it is 146 years, Johns Hopkins has produced about these 27 Nobel laureates. But if you see that what Johns Hopkins write in their webpage, that what is their vision and mission, so just I will read out only, because this is something that is educational for everybody. So the first president of Johns Hopkins University, that is this Daniel Gilman, and what he wanted, what he said that time. Gilman believed that teaching and research are interdependent. Their success in one depends on the success in the other, and that a modern university must do both well. So Johns Hopkins is the first research university in America, and the same model was followed by the others. Now if you look at this, what Johns Hopkins said, they said that we did not deviate even an inch with which this university was started about 146 years ago. But when they describe their success story, they never write that we have 27 Nobel laureates, how many papers they published in science or nature. So what they write is the following. At Johns Hopkins, the research isn't just something we do, it's who we are. In 140 years of the university produced 27 Nobel laureates, that's a different story. But their effort has led to the first recording of this color photography of the Earth from the space. And their research has led to this child safety law in America. Their research has led to these surgical gloves and this chlorination for this water purification system that is used in all the municipalities across the world. So the meaning is something that it appears to me that this research that they have carried out with the fund that they received as a philanthropic donation is intimately related to the society that where this university exists, and America in particular. Now in India, again we know that this first research university in India is actually IACS, Indian Institute of Science. And both of these institutes, that is IACS and this IISc Bangalore, are the oldest institutions. But the difference is that IISc was started by this generous gift of this Tata. And the amount that time means this 1889, that is about 30 lakh. So So IACS was not able to generate that amount of money. So with this 30 lakhs rupees, he wanted to start a first research university in India. But what model to adopt? So again, one of these family friends of this Tata who helped them to have this disco in Jamshedpur, he was given the responsibility. And he just moved across the world for about 18 months. He moved in all 3 different countries in America, England and Germany, in Europe, and as well as in America. So the first model that he proposed, that the Johns Hopkins model is the best model at that time. But the British government, because unfortunately Tata died in the same year, that is 1904. So he gave money, but he could not see that a research university has come up. But the IASC Bangalore was completely developed by the British government with this Tata money. Now, if you again look at where this institute should be, so the committee that was proposed by Tata, and as well as since it is a large amount of money, so it gained a lot of propaganda, and particularly also one of these Indian National Congress's general meeting, the same thing was also discussed. So committee proposed that this IISc should be in Roorkee. But the problem was that nobody came forward to donate land in Roorkee. So it is the same problem as the Bengal. But this land was available, and it was given by the king of this Mysore, 371 acres of land. So it went to, so that is the history. And we know that today we talked about it because IISc has come in this year in this ranking, this is #1 university in the country. And we just have started. But IISc has maintained the tradition, possibly we could not do that. So we live in this year of this assessment, of this accreditation. So where we are, we need to continuously evaluate it. So in this year, IISc was able to attract a fund of about this 425 crore rupees for starting a medical college and a hospital. So it means that this IISc was started with this general fund of this Tata, and even in this year, 2022, they are able to attract a big amount, big fund, that's the private donation that came from this mine, and we know about all this story. So I personally feel that this PPP model, that is although that we are under completely administered under this GST, but we know the restrictions. So the future could be this PPP model, and keeping in mind about this Johns Hopkins University's success and the model that has been adopted by the rest of the first level universities in America. So what we have introduced here, that is undergraduate education and master's level education combined with this research, that should be our direction. If there is a shortage of these funds, the future administrators of IACS and the well wishers of this IACS should come forward to explore for these private donations, so that this undergraduate teaching and this research that is need of the society, that should be given a priority. So with this, I thank the Science Club, Association Club for organizing this meeting, because this IACS was started also with this kind of initiative, with this discussion. I hope that the same tradition will also continue. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind discourse. This will certainly enlighten us. With this, our first session is concluded. We are about to start our second session. Possibly we all are aware that the nation is celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav with Har Ghar Tiranga. Indeed, it is a proud moment of all of us being citizens of India. Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav is an initiative of the Government of India to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of progressive independent India. Through Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav, India is celebrating the glorious history of its people, culture and achievements. It is an embodiment of all that is progressive about India's socio-cultural, political and economic identity. The official journey of Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav was started on 12th March 2021 from Sabarmati Ashram when respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi flagged off a 75-week-long festival to commemorate 75 years of Indian independence. We started a 75-week countdown to our 75th anniversary of Independence Day, and this will end post a year on 15th August 2023. On 12 March 1930, Mahatma Gandhi started Dandi Yatra from Sabarmati Ashram for the awakening of self-reliance and self-respect of the country. And on this day in 2021, the symbolic Dandi Yatra was started by respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, which marks the revival of our journey of self-reliance and self-respect with the beginning of Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav. Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav is dedicated to the people of India who have not only been instrumental in beginning India for evolutionary journey but also hold within them the power and potential to enable the vision of Prime Minister Modi to activate India 2.0, which is fueled by the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat. May I now request Professor Satyajit Adhikari, Dean Administration and Finance, to discourse on One Nation, One Emotion, One Identity, bring home the national flag and celebrate Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav with Har Ghar Tiranga on 15th August 2020. Professor Satyajit Adhikari, please.
Yeah, since I will be using the screen, so can I take this microphone?
Microphone.
ada baiknya. So, it's a great occasion, possibly audible to everyone. It's a great occasion that I'm being invited to talk about this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav on the occasion of our 146th birth anniversary of IACS, and on the same time on the occasion of celebrating or commemorating 75 years of India's independence and the glorious history of the people, culture and achievement under Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav initiative by the government of India. And the slogan is one nation, one emotion, one identity, being home to the national flag and celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, Har Ghar Tiranga. So that's the title of this. I'm not a historian, but I try to study as much as possible, go through as much as possible document, and then try to make a document, and that I will be presenting last, coming 15-20 minutes. So Indian national flag, if you want to understand, you need to go the history, design, symbolism, protocol and display. Okay. And if you consider that the flag concept, the flag, this is basically, was originated as a military standard and used as a field sign while conquering by an emperor or a king over the world, across the world. And the flag symbol stood for symbol carved into wood or stone or both. As for example, you see the rise and fall of the Imperial Guptas, Garuda emblem of Gupta dynasty, that was the symbol. And this is the Asoka, lion capital of Asoka, and this is the Roman emperor, flag. And the modern days also, not so modern, but interpretation of the Vikings. That means this Netherlands and beyond, something like Denmark, Sweden, and so forth. So these are the symbols of the thing. But if you go and want to understand our Indian things, then actually national flag and our freedom struggle, they are so closely related with each other. You have to pass through the entire freedom history, starting from Sepoy Mutiny and beyond the time. Okay, so with the big outbreak of nationalist sentiment from the late 18th century, national flag began to display in civilian contest as well. Recently, there are 195 national flags in the world, of which are flown by the sovereign state within the member of the United Nations. Okay, and scenario in India pre-Sepoy Mutiny period. Okay, so this is the Jaipur King national flag before the independence, and this is the flag of Jaipur Mewar, and this is our Coachbihar's king flag. This is the flag of our Coachbihar king. Even it started from 1280 to up to the end of 19th century. So these are the flag before Sepoy Mutiny, and if you progress, and these are the details I have gone through, and then I find out. And the history of evolution of national freedom and national movement and the freedom of India, starting from Sepoy Mutiny. The first flag, it was the British himself or British herself, the Queen herself, proposed for a flag for us. And that flag is contained in Union Jack and a star of India enclosed by a royal crown. So that is the Indian royal crown and then the star. So to incorporate the Indianness in star, Queen Victoria created the Knight Command of the Order of the Star of India to honor services to the Emperor by her Indian subject. So this is basically nothing to do with India, but it is by the Queen Victoria who proposed this kind of flag under the British command, and who is serving, whoever he or she serving the British Emperor, for that kind of flag can be taken. And the Knight Commander of the Order of the Star of India, that is what it's called. And the Indian princely state British officers and administrators, they need to use this kind of flag, and that is as per the reference Philmani Arundhati, August 1999, national symbol under colonial domination. So that kind of you can go to the internet and you can find out. After that, the great sister Nivedita's flag, and that flag actually started on 1904 and 5 during the Bongo Bongo. So Bengal division, and that time she proposed this kind of Vajra and the Vande Mataram at cross. Okay, so Vande Mataram was written under the center of the flag in Bengali, and Vajra, the thunder, signifies the strength. This Vajra is the strength. Okay, and December 1, 1905, in a letter written to someone, I was trying to find out if somebody can help me. That is also Miss McLeod. Nivedita wrote a letter, and that letter she explained about this flag. And in the second letter to her in February 1905, she wrote to Miss McLeod, "We have chosen a design for a national flag, the thunderbolt, and have already made one. Unfortunately, I took the Chinese war flag as an idea and made it black on red. So black was replaced by red, and this doesn't appeal to India, so the text is to be yellow on scarlet." So that's the change Sister Nivedita made for the Indians, and that actually you can find Shankari Prasad Basu's written 2-volume edited book on Sister Nivedita. So that is Sister Nivedita's flag. And then during the partition of Bengal, the Vande Mataram flag campaigned to introduce a new flag for representing Indian independence movement. 8 lotus depict 8 provinces. So that means that time there were 8 provinces, 1905. And the flag was used at the annual session of the Indian National Congress. There must be Indian National Congress meeting in 1905. And the crescent, basically this unites the multitude of caste and race within the country. So crescent and sun, that actually unite the multitude of caste and race. So that's what it indicates. And then Vande Mataram in the middle. Okay, socio-political indication, spreading of nationalistic movement started across the country. So that is the point for Indian National Congress and the entire political force in India. They started revolution, or they started agitation against the British with this kind of flag. Okay, and then at the same time there was another flag who was a disciple of basically our great Surendra Banerjee, the Congress president is Sachendra Prasad Bose. He actually, if you see, look at the difference. This is essentially very close. Just it is star and then Vande Mataram and then star and the crescent with star. Okay, that kind of thing. The flag was hosted in 7th August 1906 in Parsi Bagan Square, Girish Park in Calcutta. Madam Bikaji Kama used the Second International Socialist Congress in Stuttgart. So that is the time also, in Stuttgart there was a Socialist Congress. In that Socialist Congress, this flag was used for the Indians in foreign land, and that was actually Calcutta flag. Okay, and Sachendra Prasad Bose, and it can be available in the and then the real movement come, and that movement is the flag of the Indian Home Rule movement, and that is much more consolidated movement of the Indians against the Britishers. And Annie Besant was the Congress president at that time, and we know that Bal Gangadhar Tilak and then Bipin Chandra Pal and Lala Lajpat Rai, they are the president and very important people at that time for the Congress. And that Congress at that time adopted a new flag, but you can see the Union Jack was there in the middle, and then that is the Saptarishi of and that is the crescent with the star. So that is also again basically unite the multitude of caste and race within the country. So that also replaced that also basically unite the entire socio-political indication, set the stage and for the independence movement to the educated English-speaking upper class Indian. So that was the only problem. Otherwise, that was actually, because you see the Union Jack is still present. The people are not totally devoid of the colonial mind or British rule. They still want to keep it, something like that. And then Gandhi flag came, and that Gandhi flag actually, I can see they introduced the Congress meeting in 1921. And Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi put forward to design a new flag, and Lala Hansraj get the idea to use the spinning wheel, and then we know he is the man who is responsible for modern day Indian flag, and that is Pingali Venkaiah, and designed the new. But you can see a little bit change. That is green, and then the red, and then white, and then the spinning wheel for the cotton and this thing. So that was introduced by Gandhi in 1921 Congress meeting. But there is immediately actually some interpretational change, and Gandhi changed those interpretational because it makes more multitude over the religion, caste and race and everything. We want to make it much more a great nation, that kind of with that kind of mind we try to develop, because originally meaning was red for the Hindus, green for the Muslim, and white color for the display other religion. But Mahatma Gandhi made a huge change, and he made the modern interpretation. Red color represents the sacrifice of the people, and then the green color stood for hope, and white for the purity. Motive reflecting the secularistic idea to represent the country. So there is a phase transition happened in 1921. That phase transition says reflecting the secularistic idea to represent the country. So the Swaraj flag finally is getting the final, very close to the final form. In 1923, 13th April, after the Jallianwala massacre, the Swaraj flag was hoisted, and that flag was the Pingali Venkaiah design, and the event was conferred between the congressman and the police, after which 5 people are imprisoned, hundreds of people are protested, continue the flag process after the meeting. So that is really got the momentum for the independence of the country. And we know that flag, now it is more or less converged to the flag, to the final form of the flag. But that flag then ignites the flag Satyagraha campaign, against the British imposed restriction on civil freedom, and also the legitimacy of British rule in India altogether. So that defines, that was the main idea, and then the flag Satyagraha campaign has been one of the key elements in Salt Satyagraha 1930 and the Quit India movement 1942. So non-violent civil disobedience revolt, hoisting the national flag, and the technique of Satyagraha. That was the technique now well established around 1930 or something, 30 and 1942. So now the full-fledged momentum for the Indian independence started, and the final form in 1953, the National Congress endorsed the flag movement led by Sarojini Naidu, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. The flag also gained accepted in the Khilafat movement. This Khilafat movement is a very important event, because that actually really put the British in a cornered way, and that movement also, that flag was used, because then actually the fully homogenized Indian society got against the British, and that time, because it's a Khilafat movement where this flag was used, and in 1931 Swaraj flag became the official flag of Congress, as well as it turns out the symbol of independence movement. And then we know this is Azad Hind flag, the national flag of the first time on first free Indian territory to counter the Lion of Britannia. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose chose a symbol with a very distinctive history, the tiger. No, the spinning tiger, and that is the symbol. And the tiger has been the symbol of Tipu Sultan, Chola dynasty, and the spirit of India of South Asia. The famous book on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and that was written by Toge Guga, 2007, and that was the flag of Azad Hind Fauj flag. And we know that on 30th December 1943, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose hosted the first independent national flag on Port Blair in Andaman and Nicobar after captured by the Japanese military. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose renamed Andaman as Sohid Iceland and Nicobar as Swaraj Iceland. He declared Andaman and Nicobar as the first liberated territory of India. On 14th of April 1944, during the Second World War, soldiers of Indian National Army liberated Moirang in actually Manipur from the British Emperor, where also this flag and Lieutenant Colonel Shaukat Ali of the INA hosted the tricolor of the second time on the Indian soil at Moirang. This is 45 kilometers away from the Imphal. And that you can get all the pictures and all the information is actually completely, I would say, perfect information you can get from this book. And then at the time of independence came, Mountbatten 1947 proposal, a British interference happened. Mountbatten wanted the Union Jack should be there, and that was rejected by the Jawaharlal Nehru. And you can find 1996 Indian National Flag proposal of the, and there you can get the entire history how it happened at that time. And then the national flag of the Indian independence, India, 23 of June 1947, just before the independence, recently formed Constituted Assembly set up an ad hoc committee headed by Rajendra Prasad, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Sarojini Naidu, C. Raja Gopalacharya, and Ambedkar committee resolved that suitable modifications should be adopted for the national flag of India. I am thus telling the history, so whatever it is, okay? And the modification, the flag should not have any communal undertones. The chorka, the spinning wheel of the Congress flag was replaced by Ashok Chakra wheel from the lion capital of Osaka. Initially, Gandhi was not very pleased by the replacement of the spinning wheel and reacted bitterly as, I must say that if the flag of Indian Union will not contain the emblem of the chorka, I will refuse to salute that flag. He further wrote, if we neglect the chorka, we will be acting like a man who remembers God in sorrow and forget him when he showers of happiness. Afterward he eventually came around to accept it. Okay, so national flag was adopted in 22nd July 1947, celebrated at Flag Adoption Day. So the first hoisting of tricolor of independent India, 16th August, actually 5 p.m. by Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, the national flag for the first time at Red Fort, and this is the original picture. The symbol and gesture has been followed by every Prime Minister seemed to honor the freedom fighter and their sacrifices. Now, few important, informations how the national flag should be. The width by height ratio is 3:2, and saffron, white, green are the three colors being used as the horizontal, color band. Saffron on the top, white in the middle, and the green in the bottom of equal proportion. Moreover, at the center of the white strip is a depiction of Ashok Chakra, 24 evenly spaced forks in navy blue. By law, the flag must be made from khadi, a type of hand-spun cloth or silk, popularized by Mahatma Gandhi. 2009, the Karnataka Khadi Gramodyog Samyukta Sangha, this is a PSU, public sector unit, and that actually has the sole proprietary right so far, even up to recently, become the sole manufacturer of the national flag under the Khadi Development and Village Industry Commission. Okay, and that document you can Government of India 2006 thing happened. Now symbolism I already told about you. The saffron symbolizes sacrifice and renunciation, and the white symbol the peace and truth, and green signifies courage and faith. Ashok Chakra represents Dharma Chakra. The center of the wheel is surrounded by 24 spokes, which symbol righteousness, justice, and progress. The wheel represents a constant state of motion, and that repels stagnation and herald progress. In the word of philosopher and Vice President of India, Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, Vakko or the saffron denotes renunciation or disinterestedness. Our leader must be indifferent to the material gain and dedicate themselves to the reward. The white in the center is light, the path of truth to guide our conduct. The green shows our relation to the soil, our relation to the plant life here, and on which all other life depends. The Ashok Chakra in the center of the white is the wheel of the law of dharma, the truth or satta, dharma or virtue, ought to be the controlling principle of those who work under the flag. Again, the wheel denotes motion. There is death in stagnation. There is life in movement. The India should no more resist change. It must move and go forward. The wheel represents dynamism, a peaceful change. So that's the that's the the interpretation or message that gives you our flag. Now there are few things, as I said, the Khadi Gramodyog Samyukta Sangha, that is the sole proprietor right, they have to produce this flag. Recently, I heard there is some change in recent parliament session, probably last week, but that I'm not sure what are the change. So that's why I didn't put there in this display. And this is actually Bureau of Indian Standard that certifies this the flag. And this is something the Indian government in 2001 amendment the flag code under the national flag made of polyester or machine-made flag has been allowed. The development has been made so that enough flag is available to the government. Har Ghar Tiranga color and every door program and progress to cover government building, private office and residences. Har Ghar Tiranga is a campaign under the aegis of Azad Ka Amrit Mahotsav to encourage people to bring the Tiranga home and to hoist it to mark the 70th year of Indian independence, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. The idea behind the initiative is to invoke the feeling of patriotism in the hearts of the people and to promote awareness about the Indian national flag, and that is also the quoted statement by the Ministry of Culture, Government of India. Okay, there are few things, the display or uses of the flag are administered by the Flag Code of India. The emblem and the names, prevention of improper use 1950 and the prevention of insult to national flag. So there are proper rules, and there I saw in a small write-up that is you can have 3 years of imprisonment if it is not used properly or it is being insulted and it is proven. There is an important change, and that change happened in 2002 by Naveen Jindal. Okay, he actually made an Indian billionaire industrialist and a former member of Parliament Lok Sabha from Kurukshetra, Haryana. What he made 5 writ petition under Article 2 to 6 actually to the Constitution of India before the Delhi High Court in early 1992, the right of a private citizen to flag the Indian flag on any day. On 15 January 2002, Union Cabinet announced that citizens will be free to fly the national flag respectfully to all days from the 26th January 2002. So that's a great change happened, and the government subsequently used a new flag code of India 2002, which contained the guideline of flying the national flag. And thereafter, Mr. Naveen Jindal founded the Flag Foundation of India, a non-governmental organization. And how to display, and this is very important. If you see the display with flag, if you look this way and look at that, and if these are the other countries' flag, Indian flag should be on the left side. Okay, and if the two countries make any kind of summit or any kind of meeting, that again there will be cross and it has to be on the left. Okay, and if there are in the building, if you display the national flag with United Nations flag, then United Nations flag will be the right hand side and the Indian flag is the left hand side. So that is also important information that need to be known. And heartmost, the flag should be flown at the heartmost as a sign of mourning. The decision to do so lies with the President of India, who also decides the period of such mourning. Okay, the flag is flown heartmost nation-wise on the date of President, Vice President or Prime Minister. The Indian flag cannot be flown at heartmost on Republic Day, Independence Day and Gandhi Jayanti, 26th January, 15th August and 2nd October, or state formation anniversary. These are important state formation anniversary for the princely states. Okay, so for the princely states, those days you can flow the flag up to the half. Okay, but in the next day, such an event, the flag must be raised to the full mast when the body is moved. If someone like that stature died, when body is moved from that building, then it has to be again, flown in the full mast. Okay, the Indian flag lies at half mast on the dome of Indian's presidential place, Rashtrapati Bhavan, after the death of former Indian President APJ Abdul Kalam in New Delhi, India, July 28. 2005. This is the real picture of that day. Okay, so that day how it was flown. So I almost came to the conclusion, and the conclusion is very interesting. National flag represents a nation beyond boundaries of race, caste, language, religion. It wakes the idea of bringing first and foremost an Indianness within us. At the same time, national flag also depicts the rich unity in diversity. We celebrate every Indian religion, language, culture and religion. It is the greatest symbol of India's oneness of pluralism. We as Indians should always respect our national flag with a great sense of pride. I end with a quotation by Mahatma Gandhi. A national spirit is necessary for national existence. A flag is a material aid to the development of such a spirit. So thank you for your comments. If there is any question, if I can answer, that is okay. So thank you.
স্যার একটা কথা কি আছে বলছি যে শেপ যেটা 2:3 এটা কি মানে একদম অ্যানসেস্টর টাইম থেকে নেওয়া
না it is
এই ফাইনাল শেপের কনসেপ্টটা কখন এসেছে
এটা হচ্ছে এটা বলছি না
শেপের হিস্ট্রিটা পাওয়া যায় না
হ্যাঁ এটা একদম এইটা এই কমিটি 23 জুন 1947
তার আগে শেপটা যে যেরকম ইউজ করতে
whatever. So this is the final form of the flag. This is the final form of the flag. And this is you can understand.
শেপ গুলো অন্যরকম আছে, কারণ 1:2 আছে,
Whatever, our shape is 3:2. Okay? And this is the committee, final committee. It is before the independent ad hoc committee, Constitutional Assembly. That is very important. Okay? I am not a historian, so whatever I try my best. So please forgive me if I make a mistake.
Thank you, sir. For your kind lecture. Certainly a lesson for all of us. It is time for popular lecture commemorating 146th Foundation Day of IACS. May I now request Professor Soumitra Amol Roy-Choudhury, Chair Officer, to deliver a popular lecture on search for a hidden Professor Soumitra.
এখন দাঁড়িয়ে আমার সেট হতে দাও, এখন দাঁড়িয়ে
So I'm really grateful for inviting me here this very special day for IACS. This Foundation Day today and 146 years. It's a very, very long journey. And the first talk by the director, Dr. Tapas Chakraborty, we heard about the very strong heritage of this institute, in particular contribution of Dr. Har Ghar. Actually, I didn't know few things. Actually, I really thankful to him for enlightening me with those. And subsequently, Professor Satyajit Adhikari, he explained about the various aspects of Indian national flag, how it evolved to what it is now. So thank you, Satyajit. Actually, most of the things I didn't know, so it is really remarkable history that you have depicted here. So, what I will do on the other hand, I will just talk about science today. This is the Science Institute, and I personally always felt that, as Professor Chakraborty has pointed out, that the most of the things that I have learned from my students. So, the teaching is an integral part of any research. So, what I will talk today is on a subject where I do work with my group, and it's an extremely modern subject. Right now, extensive work are being done in various parts of the world, especially in United States and Europe. So I'll just try to share my excitement about this research with you. And I have tried, seriously I have tried to kind of remove all the technical, mathematical details so that it is suitable for a general audience, those who are not really scientists. But I have tried my level best, but I cannot completely get rid of it. But I feel that it is good to have some kind of scientific mindedness so that I try to explain maybe one or two equations to you and I'm sure you will understand. Those are very, very simple. But without those it is impossible to explain to this very modern thing of science. So it talks about search for a hidden world. Now the word hidden world, you must be feeling surprised that what do I mean by this, what kind of research is this? So I start with this first mentioning that consider this series of ants, they are moving on a line which you see all the time. Now these ants, suppose its brain is such that it can only see in one direction. So these ants will definitely say that they are living in a world which has just one direction, one line. They are only moving. Now suppose suddenly some of these ants feel that there is another direction to move and they start moving on the surface. Instead of a line, they are moving on a two-dimensional thing which is a length and a breadth. And earlier only it was moving along this length, but now they are moving on the surface. And those ants actually moving on this table actually think that the world is two-dimensional. Now, let us come to this man standing here. You can see, and this man actually, this is we sitting in this room. We think that actually we live in a three-dimensional world. This room, everyone will go outside, length, breadth, and height, and it's a three-dimensional world and universe where we live. But how do you know that we are just not like ants and there are some more dimensions which we cannot see? Is there any reason to believe that the creator of this world or universe, whatever, preferred this number 3? There is no reason. What is so special about number 3? So in principle there can be more dimensions. Now, I start with the question, how many space dimensions are there? So all of you will say in this room that is 3. But if I ask you, how do you know this? You will tell me that that is what we see. But that is not a good enough answer. Do you know why? Because there are so many things which we cannot see. Have you ever seen an electron? Have you ever seen a nucleus inside an atom? But all of you believe that that thing exists. We haven't seen an electron, right? So we do not see is not a good enough answer. Because there are so many things. Maybe there are more space dimensions which were invisible. And you may then ask me one very legitimate question, but then why do you bother about them? I mean, why suddenly you are raising this question? So, my answer would be that what I try to show, they can offer explanation of many unexplained things. If I assume that they exist, they will explain those, which you cannot explain now. So there is good reason to believe. And then, if they exist, it is something like when Benjamin Franklin was flying a kite in the sky, he didn't know that what the electricity is going to do. I will try to tell you that if we ever can find these unobserved dimensions of space, sounding like a fancy story, then
we will be able to extract huge amount of energy from it. So let me start from a different direction. Suppose they exist. So we assume they exist. In principle they can. We do not see them at most. Can they have some indirect influences on our universe? So suppose they exist, my question is that going to affect our three-dimensional world? This is one very legitimate question. If they do not, then we can forget about them. And second is, why are they invisible? If they exist, then why we cannot see? We see this line, this height, this spread, but why that is invisible? So let us try to explain that. First, let me start why are they invisible. One possible reason is they are very small in size, and you cannot see them. So I will tell you more about it, and may not be detected even by most powerful microscope resolution. Today, as of today, the smallest length that you can measure is this number means put a decimal and put 18 zeros and 1. So decimal and 18 zeros and 1 meter, you can imagine how small it is. This length we can see. We can see means not by your eyes, but by the most powerful microscope on this earth, which is called Large Hadron Collider in CERN, Geneva. But suppose the size of that space is smaller than this, then this is invisible. Now, let me tell you that you may ask me that were they small always? The answer is no. We know that, okay, we just try to follow this. Consider, I'll give you a small thing, a two-dimensional surface. See the real fun, a two-dimensional surface, okay? I remove all the mathematics. Just follow this, but this is very rigorous. Two-dimensional surface, it has a length and the breadth, height and length, this. Now suppose, after some time, this direction starts rounding up, curving up, like this. So what happens, this open thing becomes like this. You have tried with a sheet of paper, and then suppose you just completely roll it. So this surface becomes a cylinder. So this I can show you right away. This surface, I roll it, this becomes a cylinder. So now, this was earlier this direction, now I have one direction this and the other direction is this, along this closed direction. Now, suppose with time, this circle becomes smaller. This circle becomes smaller, this radius of the circle, this length remains long, but this radius becomes smaller. And then with time, it becomes even smaller. Now suddenly it becomes so small that you cannot see this width, this radius is so small that you cannot see it, you cannot detect it. Now you will say that this is only one dimensional. So suddenly you started with two dimension, you have ended up with one dimension, one has disappeared from your eyes. So the whole idea is that our universe started from a huge explosion called Big Bang, where this extra dimension was there. Then as the universe expanded, which you can measure by telescope, then the possibility is that one dimension has curved and become so thin that it has disappeared from our eyes. So suppose R, that radius is beyond the resolution of that most powerful microscope I mentioned, so it becomes invisible. One space dimension has totally disappeared as the cosmological evolution takes place. Now, there can be another reason of invisibility. Now the other direction is not so small, but interestingly, the light. So when you see something, why do you see that? Because the light travels. So why you are seeing me? Light traveling to me and it is going to you. But if a thing happens when the light on other particles cannot enter in that direction. Only gravity, gravitation is a very weak force. It cannot see small things. Gravity is a very weak force. I will come to this. It cannot see small things. So what happens? That this is your universe, this plane. Everything is confined on the wall. It cannot exceed. It is something like this. Suppose I make this room absolutely dark. You cannot see me. So the light cannot get into this extra direction, and therefore this direction is invisible to you. Although it is not small, but it is invisible because light is not traveling there. So see, so how beautifully we can explain that why and direction, a hidden word can become hidden. So this we can show mathematically when I have shown you pictorially. But then how to test the existence of this? Suppose this has happened. How to test its existence? Two ways. One is direct and another is indirect. Direct this means, suppose this is very small, but I told you that how can you go inside that smallness? Now, all of you know that by ordinary X-ray, you can, by ordinary light, you cannot see my bones, but with X-ray you can, right? You can see my bones inside my body. Why? You can go to a more smaller part of my body. Why? Because X-ray has a smaller wavelength. Smaller wavelength means higher frequency. That means higher energy. So more is the energy you supply, you can go inside. So, there are two ways, direct or indirect. One is that use huge energy to go inside that small dimension. That radius, that small radius I showed, go inside that. So there is one possibility. One is directly go inside using high energy. This is one possibility. The other possibility is that you don't go inside, but you will see the presence of the extra dimension like this. Suppose this is your world, okay? And there is a key outside in the extra dimension. But the light falls and see an image on your universe. So when you see the image, the key is not on your universe, but the image of the key is falling on your universe. So you see the effect of this. So suddenly, suppose I find something here whose origin is not known, I will say that it is a effect from the extra dimension which I am seeing. These are indirect observations. So, this is called projection. I am projecting this higher dimensional thing into the lower dimensional. Now let me tell you that with this knowledge of extra dimension, what happens about force? We all know that force is the most fundamental thing in the universe. If there is no force, nothing will happen. The whole universe ends. Everything happens because of force. Whether the atom formed because of the electrostatic force of the protons and the electrons, or the planets are moving around the sun because of the gravitational force. Force is the responsible for all existence. So, what happens to force in extra dimension? Presence of extra dimension modifies the force. How it modifies? All of you have heard about Coulomb's law and Newton's law of gravitation, which are 1 by r squared. We all learned it in class 7, 8, school days. Now, all of you know Coulomb's law in 3 dimension. Two charges are there, the force is given by this, by r is the distance. This is the only equation that I will write, equation like this. So this is the product of the charges and 1 by r squared. Now this law has been tested up to 10 to the power minus 18 meter and no modification was found. So Coulomb's law modifications, if there is extra dimension, then the modification of Coulomb's law can be observed if you go inside the extra dimension, but the modification was not observed, so this extra dimension may be smaller than this size. So that is our guess. But suppose electric force cannot enter the extra dimension, which gravity does, the other force, Newton and force of gravitation. What gravity did? Two two masses, all of you know the Newton's famous law that two masses attract each other with a force given by this. But this force is very, very small because the Newton's constant capital G is very, very small. The only reason it is very small. For this reason, in spite of the fact that two masses attract each other, they do not easily go into each other. Otherwise, you see this laptop and this pointer, they will attract each other, they crash into each other, but they are not doing it. Why they are not doing it? Because G is so small, therefore the force is very weak. So unless one of the mass is very large, say Earth or Sun or planets, so cosmic objects, then this force is not very large. So it's a very weak force, and it has been because of the weakness they state its validity up to 10 to the power minus 3 meter, which is pretty large, actually not very small. So it can be tested up to this. So Newton's law, how does it change if there is extra dimension? You know, it's very interesting. So Newton's law, we know about the success, it explains planetary motion so well. Successfully describing many, many natural phenomena, whatever you have done in your school days, but have significant effects only when masses are large. As I say, what happens with extra dimension? There will be new theory of gravitation. Theory will become, if there are d number of extra dimensions, suppose d, then the law will become GMM by r to the power not 2 by r to the power 2 plus d. This, for the students, it's a one-line homework that this modification will happen by using Gauss's law. Many of you have heard about it. Just try to do it. The Newton's law of gravitation will become this. Now, when G is the Newton's constant, which do you remember I said G, this is very small and therefore force was very weak. But now this G is in the higher dimensional Newton's constant, in the higher dimension. So let's take one example. Suppose I have only one extra dimension. Then law will be G in the higher dimension nu mm by r to the power 2 plus that one extra dimension r to the power 2 plus 1 which is 1 by r cube. Now, if we cannot enter the extra dimension, remember this, we cannot enter inside, then this r will be replaced by capital R because you cannot enter this extra dimension. So this law becomes this. Now, you observe that I replaced 1r by capital R because you are not being able to get inside the extra dimension. This gives you back your old Newton's law GMM by r squared that is expected because you want in three-dimensional space not getting inside the extra dimension. You get back your law only if you identify G nu, that is higher dimensional Newton's constant by capital R, is your old G. That means G nu is G old R. So for appropriate value of R, you can show that this G nu can be very large, and even though G old was small. So what you have learned from this is a simple exercise. Gravity becomes a strong force in higher dimension. If there is extra dimension, gravity is not a weak force. It's an extremely strong force. So Newton constant is not a constant, it changes with dimension. So then a conflict happened between Newton and Einstein. The conflict was that Newton said that according to Newton, gravitational effect transmitted instantly. If this moves, immediately this moves. So this motion is immediately perceived because the distance changes. So the effect of gravity instantly transforms. But Einstein showed that no communication can travel faster than light. So that immediately shows that Newton's law of gravity is wrong. Though it is very successful. Sometimes in science, a very successful theory turns out to be wrong. But it's successful in explaining many things. So what happened? That the modification is required, and Einstein put forward a revolutionary idea. I tell you without doing any mathematics, he pointed out the connection between geometry and force. So what he did, let me tell you very simple, in a simple language, he said that suppose there is one mass it curves the space around it. And now when a ball moves, it moves in a curved path because the space is now curved. So the ball is moving in a curved path. You have no choice. Suppose the space is now curved, so you have to move in a curved path. So he said this famous statement that summarized: presence of mass curves the space time, and motion is now a curved line, giving an illusion of acceleration. You are thinking that is a curved line, there is an acceleration, but there is no acceleration. The space is curved itself. So what he said that sun is not attracting the earth. Sun has carved the space around it, and earth has no choice but moving like this. So change of geometry is giving an illusion of force. So he showed that the sun, the earth is moving, but what he showed that he found how the sun changes the geometry around it, and the earth moves in the curved path, and which he showed to be exactly ellipse. But he found that unlike Newton's derivation that this Newton also showed by his GM by R square force law that is moving in an ellipse. Einstein showed that this ellipse is not fixed. This ellipse rotates slowly. This is a rotating ellipse. This ellipse gradually shifts. This was experimentally discovered a few years after it was predicted. This is amazing. So then the headline of all the newspaper was at that time that nature obeys laws of Einstein. Now, let me tell you that this is Einstein predict that if space-time, the star is very massive, space-time is dangerously curved, and it is so curved that not even light can escape from it. So it is so badly curved. I will show you a picture when roughly mass is twice the mass of the sun, which some Indian-born scientists Subramanian and Chandrasekhar showed. Then the space will be so viciously curved that if even light comes within a distance, it will be sucked inside it. And since light cannot escape, it looks like a black and called black hole. So we show that the path is invariably inside, traveling towards that huge curvature called black hole. So this black hole was discovered in the sky. All of you know, we found black holes existing in the sky. So Einstein theory became absolutely at the top. But then came Hawking. Hawking said the black holes are not exactly black. So what he did, he said that Einstein did a geometric picture of force, did it beautifully, but did it classically. If you bring in quantum mechanics, then black hole surface emits particle. Black holes are not really black. It absorbs, but it emits also. And that emission we call Hawking radiation. Now you see how the extra dimension with which I started will come. This is the final part of my presentation. Hawking said that black hole behaves as a thermal system with a characteristic temperature called Hawking temperature, which is given by this expression. I am not showing you the derivation, but this H is Planck's constant. M is the mass of the black hole, that black hole is neutral, and this is the Boltzmann constant. And all of you know what doing science and what are this. But even though you are not doing science, you can guess what I am saying. So it is mass of the black hole and T is the Hawking temperature. So it is behaving like this. Now the dangerous thing is that mass, I showed that Chandrasekhar showed that this mass has to be twice the mass of the sun to form a black hole. But if you put twice the mass of the sun to the value of the Planck's constant and Kb, this temperature, Hawking temperature also decreases with mass, that is for sure. As mass increases, temperature decreases. Now putting the solar mass, the temperature becomes nanokelvin. And nanokelvin temperature is so small that it's almost impossible to see the emission from there. If the body has temperature nanokelvin, how much emission will take place? So we thought that there is no hope to check Hawking radiation. But then came the role of extra dimension. if there is extra dimension, if you remember, I showed you that gravity becomes a strong force. I showed you just a little bit before that gravity becomes a strong force. And this is the size of the extra dimension R. Gravity is strong. Now, if gravity is strong, then you do not need solar mass to form a black hole, because gravity is so strong, even a small particle form a black hole. So this is the whole idea, that Chandrasekhar formula, the mass required to form a black hole is 1 by g to the power 3 by 2. If g becomes strong, even a small mass can form a black hole, because this is the denominator. If the small mass can form a black hole, if they are called tiny black holes, and if the tiny black holes are formed, then the Hawking temperature was inversely proportional to mass. Remember, the mass becomes small, Hawking temperature becomes large, and it emits burst of radiation. So what was done? This tiny black hole should radiate into high Hawking temperature. We can expect this emission. Can LHC detect this radiation? So what was done? In Switzerland, Geneva, a huge 22-kilometer tunnel was found for. And proton beams were rotating in the tunnel with huge speed. Speed is so high that energy becomes so high that we can hope that it can enter into the extra dimension. Remember that extra dimension is small, so in order to enter there, you need huge energy. And if the proton can enter into the extra dimension, remember the gravity becomes a strong force. Remember, this becomes a strong force. Then what happens? The protons forms a tiny black holes. And that tiny black hole have a huge Hawking temperature, and there are the detector, this Atlas detector was set to detect the Hawking radiation. So that effort is being done, whether you can see the Hawking radiation which will imply the existence of extra dimension. So there are numerous work in IACS. What we are doing, recently the black hole shadow has been photographed. See, this is the dark black inside, the last region where the light is coming out. This nature of the shadow, from this we can estimate the nature, that whether there is extra dimension, because if there is extra dimension, the shadow nature will change. This is called black hole accretion. Black hole attracts things towards it. In the process, it emits X-rays. The nature of the emission tells you that whether there is extra dimension here. You know that the gravitational wave has been detected recently, which is the Einstein's theory, the oscillation of the geometry. Oscillation of the geometry is the gravitational wave, and that wave has been detected. There also, if there is extra dimension, the nature of the wave will change. So these are the work that we are doing in IACS in collaboration with many other people. And of course, the last slide is that the universe is showing the greatest challenge to us, that all the galaxies are receding away from each other with huge speed, accelerating speed, as if there is a repulsive force called dark energy, which constitutes 73%. And there are many unknown matter. This is our known matter. You being in this table chair, there are many unknown matter in the galaxy in our universe have been detected, whose nature we do not know, dark matter. All these can have an explanation that whether this extra dimension is pumping energy to produce this. So various models of extra dimensions are being explored. We are also party to that. And there are many other things. So also, I need to say that you may have heard about string theory. It's a very famous theory, where extra dimensions are automatic, where extra dimensions is part of string theory. So it gives rise to many new ideas. So we have spent space telescopes in sky to detect all this experimental data. We have put the greatest, most powerful machine and microscope on Earth, Large Hadron Collider, and we are really trying to search for an unknown hidden world. So in this room, maybe there are small, at every point, there are small circles which you do not see. But if we can ever detect that, then like I can say that like first discovering electricity, we do not know what is stored there. So this effort is going on all across the world. We are very happy to be party to that, and this search goes on forever. and let us see whether we can finally discover those hidden surprises in this hidden space. Okay, thank you. So if you have any question, please come. I don't know whether how much time we have, but yeah, please.
Sir, if the extra dimensions are not spatial, then the analogy will not work. The smallest analogy will not work.
Yeah, yes. So whether the spatial dimension can be timed, right? This is something you're asking.
Or it may be something else you don't know. I mean, you're not having time of this, right? I mean, we don't know you.
No, but see, since Einstein explained gravity through the geometry of space and time, so when we are talking about extra dimensions and its implication, we are focusing into extra space dimension. If it is neither space nor time, then we treat it as some kind of external fields, some external particles like things, some external fields. So that people are doing all the time, that whether you can take that extra dimension, instead you can some kind of external fields or particles, right? Yeah, but we are focusing into extra dimension in space, right? And time, there cannot be more time, because then that's a problem, because then you do not know in which time direction you should go. So then there will be a problem. Yes.
It's more of a query rather than a question actually. So you said there is at some point a contradiction between the Newton's law of gravitation and Einstein's explanation on it. So, and whenever you have a gravitational force and it acts instantaneously, that's what you said. Now if you have a force, that must be equal to some reduced mass multiplied by the acceleration. So if you have an acceleration, that means nothing but d2x, dt2. So that means there will be change, the change of position. So that is not instantaneous, that will take some time.
No, see, my question is the following. Suppose there are two objects which are, according to Newton, they are attracting each other, right? Suppose that t equal to t0 at one certain time, you move it. Whether you can sense its motion here at the same time or later. That is the meaning of instantaneous. So what Newton said, that if at t equal to t0 it moves, if t equal to t0 it moves, whatever be the distance. Okay, so what you are saying that it takes some time delta t to move from here to here. But let it take that delta t, but whatever small time it takes to move, instantly it senses that it has moved. Instantly, at the same instant. So they are exactly at every instant, every action here is being transmitted here. That means it is being transmitted with infinite speed.
Yeah, but in the force expression there is nowhere. The memory is there, huh?
Nowhere the memory is there, but here in force expression, no, you are absolutely right. But there is no memory. But the point is, Einstein said the memory has to be there because no information can travel faster than that.
Second thing is, that's just pure equality. In case of gravitational wave, this is longitudinal or transverse?
It's a transverse wave with spin 2. That is, so it is just like photon is spin 1, graviton, the corresponding particles of graviton, it is spin 2 transverse wave. But it's a second rank tensor. So the polarization tensor, what you use in case of photon, now the polarization tensor will have two components to measure the second rank tensor. But it's a transverse wave.
Yeah. So it is basically.
It's a basic tensor. Yeah, absolutely. And the reason is it's a massless, so same gauge invariance would be transverse condition.
Okay. So it will also get in there.
There is gravitational gauge invariance, right? It's called Redondant gauge, unlike the So, any question from the students? Yeah.
Yeah, one thing. Like in the science like there was something called the IACS ring also. It's like the LHC ring. What is the IACS ring?
Well, those are when the LHC ring is the main ring where the proton is circulated. But suppose you want to generate a kind of small energy generation in the domain. Suppose the thing is rotating, you deflect it from the path and put it in that small circle. And in that ring, you do some specific experiments with that radius and with that. So sometimes the demand, the requirement, what you are trying to observe, I was talking only in terms of Hawking radiation, but there are other observations where sometimes you need to deflect your proton beam at a particular point of energy. It is generating energy at a very high scale. You deflect it, reduce or change the energy appropriately and see the corresponding cross section. So those are the small zones where I have created. Right. Any question? Yes, please.
As you said that G mu is equal to G old into R.
Right.
And G old has, I think,
G volt is very small.
Yeah, 10 to the minus 11 order.
Sorry?
Minus 11 of order.
I cannot hear.
It's minus 11 order, right?
Minus 11, right? Yeah, 10 kilowatts.
And R is, as you said, it is less than minus 18 order.
No. See, I told you that in one model where the electromagnetic field is localized on the surface. You remember I showed you only gravity can enter. Then I showed that the extra dimension can be very large. Just a minute. I don't know. Because good questions. I mean, yeah. See here, the light and everything with electromagnetic wave, you can probe 10 to the power minus 18, and therefore its size has to be smaller. But if your light is confined on the surface, only gravity in the part of space-time, if gravity is entering here, how much length gravity was present? Only micron, which is 0.001 inch, which is very large, which is not small at all. So if you multiply that appropriator, the large extra dimension, then you can have the large granular structure. Is it clear to you? This R, this direction R can be pretty large. This R can be pretty large if only gravity is allowed to enter, because gravity has been tested. Gravity has been tested, but I didn't say that. Oh, this is later. Gravity has been tested only 10 to the power minus 3. So if you take the appropriate number of R, number of extra dimensions large, so that then this, the large, this is a very good question. I need to tell you in details, okay, let me give you some time. So if the number of extra dimension may not be 1, it may be very large, right? So if there can be, for string theory, there are 6 extra dimensions. Then the size of the extra dimension can be even of the order of meters. But you may say, why I cannot see this? You cannot see this because the electromagnetic wave is not penetrating there. It is confined on the wall. It is confined on the wall, right? Now, therefore, this extra dimension R can be large, and that large R when multiplied, as I said, showed you, when that large R is multiplied, then this becomes large. Has it answered your question? Or if you then you can meet me after this, okay? I mean, I will just work it out for you.
Sir.
Yep.
Sir, one of the slides it was mentioned that gravity has been tested for 10 raised to minus 3. Can you re-explain that statement?
Okay, so the thing is that when, so put it like this, the gravity, electromagnetic wave, up to which level of penetration you can measure. Similarly, consider gravitational wave. Suppose consider gravitational computation. This is a coupling routine. You probably know that the routine coupling is very weak. Therefore, the amount of energy it carries is very small. Because energy is obviously proportional to, it is related to the corresponding intensity, right? So gravity being a very weak force, it carries a very small amount of energy. Therefore, its penetration power is very low. So you see why light cannot measure the bone inside it. Cannot tell me, because it has a very small energy, right? But X-ray carries a much larger energy, so it can go inside. Similarly, gravitational or counterpart of the gravitational wave, it carries very small energy, and therefore with that, the maximum penetration. Basically, what happens? You know, the wave penetration is inversely. Take the de Broglie expression lambda equal to h by p. So the proportion, how much wavelength you can penetrate is depends on your momentum. So the gravitational wave carries much less momentum than electromagnetic. So that is the whole idea. So from the corresponding energy carried by the gravitational wave, we calculate the lambda, which turns out to be 10 to the power minus 3.
Sir, you said that the presence of extra dimension, the dimension need to be curled up and you have some radiation.
Right.
Why can't we think like that? Means in our general sense, suppose 2 3D structures, if they come in contact with each other, they form a plane. Means the dimension gets reduced to 2 dimensions. And if 2D plane comes in contact with each other, they eventually form a line. So why can't we think like that? They need to form a cylindrical structure.
Because if you travel along that dimension, either you come back to the same point that is compact, or if you travel, you cannot end somewhere. There cannot be an edge, right? So this rest of the side are minus infinity to plus infinity. What will happen to that? It starts from somewhere, some origin, but then if you go, either it comes back to the same point like a circle, or it has to abruptly end somewhere. So if you change abruptly at some point, so they are asking, but you know there is a time shortage here, but this is a very good question. If abruptly ends, then it put another universe there. This is called the multiverse theory. So I don't want to get into all this. This is a very general lecture. So I will come out of the room, I will tell you. Okay. So I'm sorry that there is some other speakers are there. So you are most free. You can feel free to talk to me outside the room. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation on the topic large point. I know you are well and you are motivated about finding structure. You are very much popular.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is our last session. Please don't leave. It is time to remember and to offer our gratitude to our great visionary and founder of our beloved IACS, Dr. Mahendra. It is our pleasure that we have asked Mr. Kolkata, one of the successors of Dr. Mahendra. Mr. Kolkata gave a audio drama on Dr. M.S. Sarkar. He would also speak on his famous petition. May I now request Mr. Arun Sarkar to come up the dais. Mr. Arun Sarkar, may I also request Ms. Deepika Chakraborty to please come forward and present a bouquet to Mr. Arun Sarkar.
এর আগে আমার ব্রেইনে হচ্ছে গ্রুপকে নিয়ে দুবার আসা হয়েছিল, দুবার ডাক্তার মহেন্দ্রলাল আমরা পারফর্ম করেছিলাম। আজকেও আসার কথা, কিন্তু আমরা প্রিপেয়ার নই বলে আসা হলো না। তো দলের বদলে আমি একাই এসে হাজির হলাম। জানি না কতটা আমি পারফর্ম করতে পারবো, আমি খালি তিনটে পোর্শন আপনাদের সামনে রাখছি। তিনি কতগুলো পদের অধিকারী হয়েছিলেন, যেখানে তাকে বলা হলো হোমিওপ্যাথি এগেইনস্টে তাকে বলতে বলা হলো, সেখানে কি ঘটলো? তিনি ধর্মে বিশ্বাসী ছিলেন না, কিন্তু অদ্ভুত ভাবে একজন মানুষের সঙ্গে তার পরিচয় হলো, তিনি রামকৃষ্ণ দেব। কি করে দুজনে মিল হলো এই একটা। আর আরেকটি 23 বছরের মহারাষ্ট্রিয়ার মেয়ে, যেটা লেকচার শুনে বলেছিলেন, আমি হোল ইংল্যান্ড ট্যুর করেছি, তৃতীয় মহেন্দ্রলাল খুঁজে পাইনি, অনাদার ঘর পাণ্ডুরাং। এই তিনটে প্রশ্ন একটু আপনাদের সামনে পড়ছি, একটু ধৈর্য ধরে শুনবেন। 85 বছর হয়ে গেছে তো, উইদাউট স্পিক আমি দেখছি। 1870 সালে কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের ফেলো নিযুক্ত। 1876 সালে ডাক্তার সরকারের প্রধান উদ্যোগে এবং অক্লান্ত পরিশ্রম চেষ্টায় সায়েন্স অ্যাসোসিয়েশন প্রতিষ্ঠিত। 1877 সালে কলকাতার অন্যতম অনারারি ম্যাজিস্ট্রেট। 1878 সালে ফ্যাকাল্টি অফ মেডিসিনের প্রতিনিধি রূপে সিন্ডিকেটের সদস্য। 1883 সালে CIE উপাধি প্রদান। 1887 সালে কলকাতার সেরিক পদে মনোনীত। 1893 থেকে 1896 পর্যন্ত ফ্যাকাল্টি অফ আর্টের সভাপতির কাজ করেন। বহু বছর এশিয়াটিক সোসাইটির সভাপতি অভিষিক্ত। 1898 সালে কলকাতার বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় তাকে অনারারি ডিএল উপাধি প্রদান করে। এছাড়া স্বদেশ ও বিদেশে বহু বিজ্ঞান সভার সভ্য পদে তিনি মনোনীত হন। আধুনিক কালে ভারতবর্ষের নবজাগরণের দিক থেকে দেখতে গেলে 19বিংশ শতাব্দী নিঃসন্দেহে এটি দীক্ষিত। এই জাগরণের প্রথম প্রকাশ বাংলাদেশে, ক্রমে তা ভারতবর্ষে ছড়িয়ে পড়ে। এর প্রভাবে ধর্মচিন্তা, সমাজ চিন্তা, সাহিত্য সৃষ্টির প্রেরণা নতুন নতুন খাতে প্রবাহিত হতে শুরু করে। বহু মনীষী চিন্তাধারাকে আবির্ভাব এই 19বিংশ শতাব্দীতে করতে দেখা যায়। ধর্ম চিন্তায় রাজা রামমোহন থেকে পরম পুরুষ শ্রীরামকৃষ্ণ ও স্বামী বিবেকানন্দ, সাহিত্যে বিদ্যাসাগর, মাইকেল, বঙ্কিমচন্দ্র, রবীন্দ্রনাথ আসন জমিয়ে রাখলেও বিজ্ঞানের ক্ষেত্রে একজন মানুষ অন্তত নিজের জীবন পথ করে দেখিয়ে দিচ্ছিলেন, আর কেউ তাকে সাড়া না দিল কেমন করে একতলায় এগিয়ে যেতে হয়। ডাক্তার সরকার কারিগরি শিক্ষা ও বৈজ্ঞানিক গবেষণামূলক প্রচেষ্টা দুটি সম্পূর্ণ আলাদা জিনিস। আমি গবেষক তৈরি করতে চাই, বিশ্বজোড়া খ্যাতি সম্পূর্ণ বিজ্ঞানীর আবির্ভাব আমাদের মধ্যে দেখতে চাই। দিন রাত বৈজ্ঞানিক গবেষণা নিয়ে মেতে না থাকলে ভালো মৌলিক গবেষণা হওয়ার নয়। গবেষণা না হলে বিজ্ঞান সবার সার্থকতা কি? এই মানুষ কি বলে? বিজ্ঞানীর ডাক্তার মহেন্দ্রলাল সরকার। এই ব্যক্তিত্ব মহাপুরুষ সম্পন্ন মানুষটির জন্মের 189 বছর কেটে গেলেও আজও ভাবতে অবাক লাগে যে সময় বিজ্ঞানের কথা ও প্রয়োজনীয়তা মানুষের কাছে চিন্তার অগ্রসর ছিল। মহেন্দ্রলাল তো স্বপ্ন দেখলেন কেমন করে এই দেশে বিজ্ঞান লক্ষ্যে প্রতিষ্ঠা করা যায়, উচ্চতর বৈজ্ঞানিক গবেষণায় দেশের কৃতি যুব সমাজকে প্রলুব্ধ করা যায়। এদেশে এক বিজ্ঞান গবেষণাগার খোলার জন্য তার কি অপরিসীম পরিশ্রম, নিষ্ঠা এবং এই ব্যাপারে তাকে যে অসহযোগিতার ঘূর্ণিঝড় সামলে নিজ প্রতিজ্ঞায় অবিচল থেকে লড়াই করে গেছে তা সত্যি অবিশ্বাস্য। কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের দ্বিতীয় এমডি, দেশবাসী বিশেষত পাশ্চাত্য পদ্ধতিতে শিক্ষিত চিকিৎসক মন্ডলী ওই তরুণ ডাক্তারটির কাছে যখন অগাধ প্রত্যাশা, তখনই যে হোমিওপ্যাথি চিকিৎসার উপর ডাক্তার মহেন্দ্রলালের তীব্র কটাক্ষপাত, ঘটনাচক্রে তিনি হয়ে উঠলেন হোমিওপ্যাথি পূজারী। যে সবাই তিনি ভালো লেকচার দিতে পারতেন। হোমিওপ্যাথির এগেন্স্টে তাকে বলা হলো যে আপনি হোমিওপ্যাথির এগেন্স্টে আপনি বলবেন। সেই সবাই কি বলুন? ডক্টর ফ্রিডেন, রেসপেক্টেড জেন্টলম্যান, মাই কলিগস এন্ড ফ্রেন্ডস, আজিকার সবাই আমাকে চেয়ারম্যান করা হইয়াছে বলিয়া আমি আপনাদের অভিনন্দন জানাইতেছি। এই সাইন্টিফিক সেমিনারে বিভিন্ন চিকিৎসকগণ যাহাদের চিকিৎসা জীবনে যা দেখিয়াছে বা শিখিয়াছে এবং উপাতে আমরা নূতন করিয়া কি শিক্ষা লাভ করিব তাহাই আপনারা জানিতে পারিবেন। আর আমাদের সাইন্টিফিক সেমিনারে ফার্স্ট লেকচারার হইবে ডক্টর মহিন্দ্র লাল সরকার এমডি। আশা করি যাহার পরিচয় আপনাদের নিকট নূতন করিয়া দিবার প্রয়োজন নাই। আমি যাহাকে তার বক্তব্য রাখিতে অনুরোধ জানাইতেছি। ডক্টর সরকার। My respected professor, the chairman of today's meeting, my colleagues, and respected gentlemen. এই বিজ্ঞান সবাই আমার প্রবন্ধ পাঠের সুযোগ করে দেওয়ার জন্য আপনাদের সকলকে আমার আন্তরিক ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। আমার প্রবন্ধের বিষয়বস্তু হল চিকিৎসা বিজ্ঞানের অনিশ্চয়তা এবং রোগ ও ঔষধের সম্পর্ক। আপনারা সবাই জানেন 1863 সালের 17 মে ছিল আমাদের এই সমিতি প্রতিষ্ঠা দিবস এবং সেই সময় আমি প্রথম সম্পাদক রূপে নিযুক্ত হয়েছিলাম। সেই সময় আমি একটা বিজ্ঞান বিষয়ক প্রবন্ধ পাঠ করেছিলাম, যার শিরোনাম ছিল অ্যালোপ্যাথিক প্রথার অসামান্য সাফল্য ও অন্যান্য প্রথার অসারত্ব। প্রথমেই স্বীকার করিনি, তখন আমি ছিলাম একজন নবীন চিকিৎসক। অভিজ্ঞতার ছাপ তখন বিশেষ পড়েনি বলেই হয় আমার জীবনে। তখনকার অনভিজ্ঞতার মৃদু রূপটা ধীরে ধীরে দৃঢ় ছাপে পরিণত হয়েছে। তখন আপনারা আমাকে দেখেছেন একজন গোড়া অ্যালোপ্যাথ। হোমিওপ্যাথি ছিল আমার প্রধান শত্রু। ভাষার ক্ষুদার ব্যঙ্গের খোঁচায় হোমিওপ্যাথিকে আমি ছিন্ন ভিন্ন করে ছেড়েছি। এই আমার উপর দায়িত্ব দিলে আমার একজন রিপোর্টার বন্ধু মডার্ন হোমিওপ্যাথি পুস্তক দিয়ে হোমিওপ্যাথিকে আরো কড়া সমালোচনা করার জন্য। এই পুস্তকের চাই বিরূপ সমালোচনা, যার প্রতিক্রিয়ার মধ্যে নীতি শব্দ হয়ে যাবে, ওরা চুপ সে নিষ্ক্রিয় হয়ে পড়বে। সমালোচনার চোখ দিয়ে পুস্তকটি পড়ে নিলাম একবার, কিন্তু একবার পড়ে বিরূপ সমালোচনার দুর্বল স্থান খুঁজে না পাওয়ায় কয়েকবার পড়ে সমালোচনার বদলে লিপ্ত হলাম আত্মসমালোচনা। দেখলাম বহু রোগী আমরা সারাতে পারি না, আর পারি না বলি সেগুলো সবই অসাধ্য রোগ নয়। বহু রোগীকে আমাদের এই কড়া ভেষজ রাজ দিয়ে আরো রোগগ্রস্ত পঙ্গু করে তুলি। আবার আমরা যে মিক্সচার দিয়ে রোগীদের কখনো কখনো সারাই, তাতে দেখা যাচ্ছে ওই মিক্সচারের সম্পূর্ণ সম্পন্ন ওষুধটাই রোগীকে সারাচ্ছে। এই মডার্ন ফিলোসফি চ্যালেঞ্জ জানাচ্ছে আমাদের অ্যালোপ্যাথি গোষ্ঠীকে এইসব বিষয় নিয়ে, এবং সেই সঙ্গে তথ্যের মাধ্যমে দেখিয়ে দিচ্ছে ওদের হোমিওপ্যাথির প্রভাব। প্রাধান্য এবং ক্ষুদ্র মাত্রার অসামান্য সাফল্য পাড়া দর্শকদের মধ্যে থেকে গোলন শুরু হলো। I protest that the Sarkar is going to deliver his lecture in favor of homeopathy. ডাক্তার সরকারি মস্তিষ্ক বিকৃতি করেছে, ডাক্তার সরকারের পেপার ছিনিয়ে যাও, ডাক্তার সরকার মিথ্যে করছে, ডাক্তার সরকারকে বের করে দিন সভা থেকে। ডক্টর ফিরার ব্যস্ত হয়ে উঠে দাঁড়ালেন, অর্ডার অর্ডার, প্লিজ টেক ইউর সিটস। Let chance be given to Dr. Sarkar. ডাক্তার সরকার, বন্ধুগণ, আপনারা চিকিৎসক, সর্বাপেক্ষা ধৈর্যশীল মানব। আমার বক্তব্যের পর আমার যুক্তিকে আগে খণ্ডন করুন, তারপর আমার প্রতি মন্তব্য বা কটাক্ষপাত করবে। ওসব হোমিওপ্যাথি প্রবন্ধ পড়া চলবে না এখানে। এটা অ্যালোপ্যাথি ডাক্তারদের সভা, তার নিয়ে আমরা কখনো সহ্য করবো না। Absolutely correct. Please turn him out from the meeting. Or কারোর মতো ছেড়িয়ে নিয়ে হোক। Gentlemen, you are not qualified gentlemen. It is a meeting of the wise men of India. You must show the manner and discipline. You must also respect the ex-secretary and existing vice chairman of IMA, Dr. Sarkar. Tomorrow the article আমার নিকট জমা দিবে। No sir. যে আর্টিকেল আমি সম্পূর্ণ পড়তে পারিনি তা আমি জমা দেবো না। ডক্টর সরকার, চেয়ারম্যান হিসেবে তোমাকে ডাইরেক্টর দিয়েছি। প্লিজ হ্যান্ড ওভার ইউর পেপারস। ওর হাত থেকে পেপার ছিনিয়ে নিয়ে আও। ঠিক আছে, গুপ্ত চাও। সভাপতিকে ডাক্তার সরকার অপমান করেছে। সভাপতি আমার মাস্টার মশাই, তাকে যদি আমি অবমাননা করে থাকি আমি অবশ্যই তার কাছে ক্ষমা চাইব। কিন্তু যে পেপারগুলো জমা না দেওয়ার পেছনে যে চুক্তি আছে তা দয়া করে আপনারা শুনুন। আমি গত 3 বছর ধরে এই অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের সম্পাদক ছিলাম এবং সেই সময়ের মধ্যে বহু প্রবন্ধ পাঠ ও আলোচনা হয়েছে, তার একটি কপিও সম্পাদকের কাছে জমা পড়ে। আর এটা একটা অপঠিত প্রবন্ধ। সেই দৃষ্টান্ত থেকেই বলছি, অপঠিত আর্টিকেল জমা নিতে চাওয়ার অধিকার চেয়ারম্যানেরও নেই। জমা দেওয়াটাই বেআইনি। সরকার একজন সম্পাদক উঠে দাঁড়ান। ডাক্তার সরকার, আপনার প্রবন্ধটি আমার হাতে জমা দিয়ে সবাইকে শান্ত হতে দিই। আমি একটা বিশিষ্ট বন্ধু, আপনার কোনো ক্ষতি বা অপমান হোক তা আমি চাই না। এটা আমার বন্ধুত্বের দাবি। বেশ, বন্ধুত্বের অনুরোধে এটা আপনাকে দিতে পারি, অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের সম্পাদকের দাবিতে নয়। কথা দিন, এটা আপনারা পড়ে নিয়ে আবার আমাকে ফেরত দেবেন অব্যক্তিত ভাবে। কথা দিচ্ছি ডাক্তার সরকার। ডাক্তার মহিনুল্লাহ পেপারগুলো সম্পাদকের হাতে জমা দিয়ে সবার ত্যাগ করতে উদ্যত হলে ডক্টর ফিলের বাধা দিয়ে ওঠে। স্টপ ডক্টর সরকার, তোমার ফিউচারটা ভাবি আছো কি? ভাবি আছো তোমার কি রূপে চলবে? আমি চাষাচ্ছি আমরা প্রচন্ড, যখন যেটা সঠিক বলে মনে স্থির করি তা অবশ্যই পালন করি। আপনারা সুখে থাকুন, আপনাদের মিথ্যে অ্যালোপ্যাথিক পরিমাণে আমি চললাম। প্রয়োজন হলে চাষ করে খাবো, কিন্তু সত্যের অবমাননা করবো না। এই একটা ওনার চরিত্রের দিক পাওয়া গেল। এবার রামকৃষ্ণ দেবের কাছে কিভাবে গিরিশ গোস্বামী গীতি বলতেন আর মহেন্দ্র মাস্টারকে মাস্টার বলতেন। মাস্টার, কতকাল পর তোমাদের দেখা পেলাম, কোথায় হারিয়ে গেল সেই জমা হবার আসুন? কোথায় সেই সরল সহজ আপন ভরা মানুষটি? কোন তলায় তলিয়ে গেল সমুদ্র শিকাগো মাতিয়ে আসা সে জ্বলন্ত দ্বীপ শিকা? মাস্টার, আপনারা দেশের গর্ব, বাংলা মায়ের শ্রেষ্ঠতম। ভারতের বিজ্ঞানী, চিকিৎসক, অধ্যাপক, বুদ্ধিজীবীরা মহেন্দ্রলালকে ভুলে গেল। আপনি অমর হয়ে থাকবেন শ্রীরামকৃষ্ণ সাহিত্যের পাতায়। কাল্টিভেশন অফ সায়েন্সের চুন শক্তি ইটেন গড়ার দেওয়ালের পাশে পাশে ভবিষ্যতের মানুষ ফাদার অফ দ্য মডার্ন সায়েন্স অফ ইন্ডিয়া বলে আপনাকে মাথায় করে রাখবে। নরেন্দ্রনাথ এমনই ছিল ঠাকুরের চারপাশে নবরত্নের আসর। 1885 খ্রিস্টাব্দের শেষ ভাগে ঠাকুর অসুস্থ হয়ে পড়লে ডাক্তার মহিনুল্লালের ডাক পড়ে। 2 মহাপুরুষের সাক্ষাৎকার এবং চিকিৎসা বিদ্যার অঙ্গলি সীমাবদ্ধ থাকেনি। ডাক্তার সরকারের আধ্যাত্মিকতার আরেক প্রকাশ যে রামকৃষ্ণের প্রতিষ্ঠান, রামকৃষ্ণের প্রতি তার আকর্ষণ। একজন ঈশ্বরের বরপুত্র, অলৌকিক শক্তির অধিকারী, আরেকজন বিজ্ঞানের বরপুত্র, অলৌকিকত্বে অবিশ্বাসী। মহেন্দ্র সরকার ঠাকুরকে দেখতে হাজির হলে যেন ধ্যান ও জ্ঞান, ধর্মবিজ্ঞানের মিলন ক্ষেত্র হয়ে উঠল দক্ষিণেশ্বর। নরেন্দ্রনাথের গান শেষে মহেন্দ্রলাল বলছে, অপূর্ব, আমি অভিভূত, তুমি আমার ছেলের মতো, ঈশ্বরের কৃপায় তুমি দেশের মুখ উজ্জ্বল করবে। নরেন্দ্রনাথ, আমি ঈশ্বর মানি এটুকু বলতে পারি, তাকে জানি বুক বাজিয়ে বললে মিথ্যে বলা হবে। কেউ যদি বলে অনাদি অনন্ত ঈশ্বরের স্বপ্ন তিনি বুঝে ফেলেছেন, তাহলে তিনি নিতে পারেন। ঠাকুর বলছে, ঠিক বলেছ গো, ঠিক বলেছ, এত লেখাপড়া শিখো, তোমার অহংকার হয়নি, এটা আমি কি পাবে। অহংকার দূরে থাক, মনে হয় যা শিখেছি তা সামান্য, তাই তোমার অহংকার নেই, নীরবই মহা। বিশ্বাস যত বাড়বে জ্ঞান তত বাড়বে। যে গরু বেঁচে বেঁচে খায় সে ছিঁড়ি ছিঁড়ি করে দুধ দেয়, আর যে গরু শাক পাতা খোসা ভুসি যা দাও গপ গপ করে খায় সে গরু হুড়ুর করে দুধ দেয়। বালকের মতো বিশ্বাস না হলে ঈশ্বরকে ভাবা যায় না। গরু কিন্তু যাটাকে বেশি দুধ পারো না, কেন বলুন তো? আপনার আবার বেশি দুধ হওয়ায় আপত্তি কেন? আরে বাবা, ভুক্তভোগী বলি না বলছি, আমার একটা গরুকে যাতা খেতে দিত, এসে বাড়ি বেড়ালে মরি আর কি জিনিস। তা গরু বেড়ার ছেলে কি খেয়েছিল জানা গিয়েছিল কি? মহেন্দ্র অনেক অনুসন্ধান করে টের পেলাম দুধ আর কি কি না জানি খেয়েছিল। এসে 12,000 টাকা দণ্ড দিয়ে লাখনৌ গিয়ে তবে বেড়ান ছাড়ে। নরেন্দ্র ডাক্তার সাহেব বলেন কি একবারে লাগলো? মহেন্দ্র, আরে কিসে কি হয় তোমরা কি জানবে? ম্যাডাম, আমি ডাক্তার, আমি পাকপাড়ার বাবুদের বাড়িতে 7 মাসের মেয়ের হুকের কাছে হয়েছিল, দেখতে গিয়েছিলাম। যদি রোগের কারণ ঠিক করতে পারি না, শেষে জানতে পারলাম মেয়েটি যে গাধার দুধ খেত সে গাধা নাকি ভিজে ছিল, তাতেই হুপে সকালে এসে ওঠে। ঠাকুর বলছে, কি বলে গো, এই দুধতলায় আমার গাড়ি দিয়েছিল তাই আমার অম্বল হলো। সকলে নাচি। মহেন্দ্র, আচ্ছা সরকার নিরাকারে পার্থক্যটা কি? তিনি সরকার, তিনি আমার নিরাকার, তিনি মহাসমুদ্রের মতো অপার অসীম। ভগবান দৃশ্যমান আকারে দেখা দেন, প্রজ্ঞা বলবৎ হলে তিনি বিগলিত হয়ে জল। আচ্ছা, সূর্য উঠলে বরফ বলে জল হয়, কিন্তু জল আবার অদৃশ্য বাষ্পে পরিণত হয়। তার মানে কি জানো? সত্য উপলব্ধির পর ভগবানের সঙ্গে সহযোগ স্থাপিত হলে ব্রহ্ম চিরস্থায়িত্ব লাভ করে। ভগবান তখন আর কারো ব্যক্তিগত ভগবান থাকেন নেই, তখন তিনি পরম অজ্ঞাত অজ্ঞেয় মগ। একটা কথা বলি, জানি না আমার কথাটা এরা আবার কিভাবে নেবে। দেখো, তুমি ভাব হলে লোকের গায়ে পা দাও, এটা ভালো না, আমি মানতে পারি না। ভাবাবস্থায় আমার যে কি হয় তোমায় কি বলবো। একবার ভাবি তুমি বড় শুদ্ধ, তোমার বলে পা রেখে আমি শুদ্ধ হয়ে যাই। আমার ওই অবস্থার পর ভাবি মুজি রোগ হচ্ছে ওই জন্যে ঈশ্বরের ভাবে আমি পাগল করি। পাগলে এমন হয়, কি করবো বলো? ফাইন, তিনি মেনেছে। He expresses regret for what he does. কাজটা যে অন্যায় এই বন্ধুর আছে। মশাই, আপনি ভুল বুঝছেন, উনি সেই জন্য দুঃখিত হননি, এর দেহ শুদ্ধ অভাববিদ্ধ। ইনি জীবের মঙ্গলের জন্য তাদের স্পর্শ করেন, তাদের পাপ গ্রহণ করে এই রোগ হবার খুব সম্ভাবনা। তাই কখনো কখনো ভাবে, মশাই আপনার যখন কলিক হয়েছিল তখন আপনার কি রিগ্রেট হয়নি? কেন রাত থেকে এত পড়তাম? তারপরে রাত থেকে পড়াটা কি অন্যায় কাজ? রোগের জন্য রিগ্রেট হতে পারে, তাহলে জীবের মঙ্গল সাধনের জন্য স্পর্শ করাতে অন্যায় কাজ মনে করতে পারেন না? আমার এই অসুখটা ভালো করে নাম নেবো ডাক্তার, তার নাম গুণ করতে পারি না। যেখানে মাকালি সেখানে পাটাবলি গালাগলি গালাগলি। হ্যাঁ, দেখি জীব দেখি, এই জীবকে নদীগুণ বড় লাগে ভয় নেই, এবার জীবটা মনে। হ্যাঁ, দেখো, যে অসুখ তোমার হয়েছে লোকেদের সঙ্গে কথা কল চলবে না, তবে আমি যখন আসবো কেবল আমার সঙ্গে কথা বলি। জিনিস মাস্টার কি বুঝছো? এত অন্তরঙ্গতা আমি কোথাও পাইনি। সত্যি বহুকাল পরে যথার্থ হৃদয় এক বন্ধু পেয়েছি। এগো তুমি যেখানে ঘন্টার পর ঘন্টা কাটাচ্ছ সেখানে যেতে পার। ঘন্টার পর ঘন্টা কাটাচ্ছ, তোমার রুগীর এত সেখানে হাতে টেস্ট করে বসে আছে, সেও আছে। আর ডাক্তারিয়া রুগী যে পরমাংশ হয়েছে আমার সব গেল। রাত 3টে থেকে পরমাংশ ভাবলাম। দিদি অকৃত্রিম ভালোবাসা না হলে কি আর রাত 3টে থেকে পরমাংশ ভাবনা হতো? তুমি ভাবো কেবল তোমার জন্য এতটা সময় কাটিয়ে যায়, এতে আমারও স্বার্থ আছে। তোমার সঙ্গে কথা বলে বলো আনন্দ পাই, তাই এতটা সময় কাটিয়ে যায়। আচ্ছা, আপনি অবতার মানে না, এই ব্যাপারে আমার ফিলিংসটা জানতে ইচ্ছে করে। Yes, we want to know. মহেন্দ্র, as man, I have the greatest regard for him. কিন্তু ভাই তোমাদের ওকে অবতার করে তুলো না। তোমার শ্রদ্ধানুরাগের জন্যই তোমাকে এক ভালো লাগে। সেদিন মা আমাকে দুটি লোক দেখালে, তুমি তার ভেতরে একজন। তো জ্ঞান হবে কিন্তু শুষ্ক, তবে তুমি বসবে। তুমি হলে গম্ভীর আত্মা। হাতি ডোবায় পড়ে গেলে ডোবার জল তোলপাড় হয়, কিন্তু সায়ের দিঘিতে নামলে জল লড়েও না, চড়েও না। গম্ভীর আত্মার ভেতর ভাবতী নামলে ভাবতী কিচ্ছু করতে পারেনি গো, কিচ্ছু করতে পারেনি। জ্ঞান তোমার, এই জ্ঞান সঞ্চয় বই পড়ে হওয়ার নয়। প্রকৃতিকে ফেরাডে নিজে দর্শন করতে, তাই যত সাইন্টিফিক ট্রুথ ডিসকভার করতে পেরেছিলেন। কি যেন বললে? যারা আমার পরম বন্ধু আমায় নির্দয় মনে করে, আমার ছেলে আমার স্ত্রী পর্যন্ত মনে করে আমি মমতা শূন্য। কেমন আমার দোষ? আমি ভাব কারো কাছে প্রকাশ করি না। মস্তার নহে কি বলবো তোমাকে? তোমাদের চাইতে আমার ভাব জেগে ওঠে। আমি একা একা বসে কাঁদি। ডাক্তার, মনের কবর উন্মুক্ত করে দিন সেই সব মানুষের মাঝে যারা আপনাকে চিনতে ভুল করে, বুঝতে ভুল করে। মহত্ব বুঝতে মানুষের সময় লাগে। একদিন আসবে যেদিন মানুষেরা আপনার পরিশ্রমের মূল্য দেখেই দেবে। এই 6 বছর আগে গিরিশ বাবু যে কথাটা ডাক্তার মহেন্দ্রলালকে বলেছিলেন, অদ্ভুতভাবে 6 বছর পর একটা মহারাষ্ট্রিয়ান 23 বছরের মহিলা তাকে ভালোবেসে ফেললেন। আমি আনাদাখার পান্ডুরাং, আমার বাবা ডাক্তার আত্মারাম পান্ডুরাঙের সঙ্গে আমি আর দিদি কলকাতায় আসি 1879 সালের 9 মার্চের আগে। 16 নভেম্বর পর্যন্ত যাতায়াত করেছি, কখনো থেকে গেছি, চিঠিপত্র লেখালেখি করেছি। কলকাতা দ্রষ্টব্য বেশ কিছু স্থানে বাবার সঙ্গে দুপুরে বেড়াতে গেছি। সায়েন্স অ্যাসোসিয়েশনে বেশ কয়েকবার। আসলে বাবা জোড়াসাঁকো ঠাকুর বাড়ির ফ্যামিলি ফ্রেন্ড ছিলেন। আমার উপর দায়িত্ব পড়েছিল রবিকে ইংরেজি শেখানো। ওই ফাঁকে আমিও রবির কাছে বাংলা শিখে নিতাম। উপরি পাওনা ছিল রবির গান আর কবিতা। শাকারিতলা আর জোড়াসাঁকো, বম্বে আমার মাতৃভূমি। সেখানে আমি সত্যি একজন মেয়ে, একজন ইয়াং ডক্টরের মেয়ে বলেই আমার পরিচয়। কিন্তু শাকারিতলা ডাক্তার বাবার ডায়েরির পাতায় জোড়াসাঁকোর এক অবাক করা ইয়াং কবির কবিতাকারে খোদাই পেয়ে রইলাম কলকাতার মানুষের মনের অন্তর্মহলে। আমিও দুই প্রাতঃস্মরণীয়কে বাঁধিয়ে রাখলাম আমার হৃদয়ে চিরস্মরণীয় করে। আর জোড়াসাঁকো কবির কথা নয়, শাকারিতলা বুড়ো বাবাটিকে বড় মনে পড়ে যাচ্ছে। বাবা, বলো না কি তোমার দুঃখ? সেই দুঃখ, কি এমন যন্ত্রণা যা বুকে নিচে জমিয়ে রেখে অহরহ জর্জরিত হচ্ছ? আমার যদি মেয়ের অধিকারী দিলে যন্ত্রণার মূল খোঁজটুকু আমাকে পেতে দাও। পশ্চিম থেকে একটি বীজ আমি ধার করে নিয়ে এসেছিলাম বহু আগে। এই বীজের পূর্বপুরুষকে পশ্চিমই ধার করে নিয়ে গিয়েছিল পূর্বের ভারতবর্ষ থেকে। আমি নিজেই জমি তৈরির কাজে লেগে গেলাম। জমিও কি উত্তম, একে তৈরি করতে আমায় খুব বেশি পরিশ্রম করতে হয়নি, কিন্তু আমার সেই পরিশ্রম সার্থক হলো বই। মাতৃভূমির মাটি থেকে গবেষক ইঞ্জিনিয়ার তুলে আনতে পারলাম বই। বিজ্ঞান চর্চার প্রতি আমাদের মানুষের পড়ার মুখরতার কারণ খুঁজে পেলাম কই। আমার হাতে গোড়া এই বিজ্ঞান প্রতিষ্ঠানের প্রকল্প কি তবে ব্যর্থ হয়ে গেল? বাবা, এবারে তুমি ব্যর্থ। গোটা ইংল্যান্ড ঘুরে বেরিয়েছি, দ্বিতীয় মহেন্দ্র লাল খুঁজে পাইনি। রবির সঙ্গে মিশেছি, ওকে আপাত মস্তক নিরীক্ষণ করেছি। ও ভবিষ্যতের জুয়েল, তোমরা দেশের গর্ব। লোকে তোমায় ভুল বোঝেনি, তুমিও নিজে ভুল বুঝো না। পৃথিবী বড়ই নিষ্ঠুর, মহত্ব বুঝতে দেরি করে। গুণীর প্রকৃত মূল্যায়ন হয় মৃত্যুর পরই। কখনোই মনে করো না তোমার জীবন পরিশ্রম অসার্থক। আজকের মানুষ তোমার কাজের মূল্য না দিলেও ভবিষ্যতের মানুষ সঠিক মূল্য দেবেই দেবে। তোমার হাতে করা বিজ্ঞান সবার চূড়ায় তোমার জয় পতাকা জয় গৌরবে উঠেই থাকবে। এইটুকু বললাম। হ্যাঁ, আর তিনি গান লিখতেন। সেই নাটক করার সময় আমি কিন্তু গানের সুর জানি না, কিন্তু অদ্ভুতভাবে গানের সুর করে ফেললাম। এই গানটা আমি আমার বক্তব্য শেষ করছি। জীবন পুরাই তবু বুঝিল না, আলো থাকতে দেখতে পেলে না, আধারে কি করবে বলো না, জীবন পুরাই এলো তবু বুঝিল না। জ্ঞান চর্চা অনেক হলো, আসল জ্ঞান নামিছিল, পাপের বৃত্তি ধর্মের প্রবৃত্তি, ঈশ্বরে ভক্তি মনে করুণা, জীবন প্রভু
Thank you, Mr. Thakur, for your performance. For this IACS 146 Foundation Day program. Thank you, sir. It is time for presentation of mementos to the dignitaries. May I request Mr. Kolkata Manager from forward to present the memento to Professor Thakur Chakraborty, Director IACS.
Memento for
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mrs. Banerjee. May I now request Mrs. Dipandita Chakraborty to come forward and present a memento to Professor Satyajit Adhikari. May I now request Professor Satyajit Adhikari to come to the dais, please. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Deepamita. May I now request Dr. Gayatri Pal to please come forward and present a memento to Professor Soumitra Sengupta. Thank you, sir. May I now request Shashwati Bhattacharya to please come forward and present a memento to Mr. Arun Sarkar, please. It is time to propose vote of thanks. May I now request Mrs. Purvasa Banerjee, Deputy Registrar IACS, to please come and offer vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. On the 146th Foundation Day of IACS, I thank Professor Tapu Chakraborty, Director IACS, Professor Satyajit Adhikari, Dean Administration and Finance, for sharing valuable information and enlightening us. I thank Professor Soumitra Sengupta for his wonderful lecture, Shri Arun Sarkar for such a beautiful presentation, all the organizers, faculty members, colleagues and students for joining us today and making this program a great success. Thank you once again. And before we end, I would like to request all of you to kindly note that the annual convocation for 2022 will be held tomorrow, so all are cordially invited. And last but not the least, we have arranged a light refreshment which is being served outside this hall, so you can join us there. Thank you.